All right, everybody, welcome. We're doing the Team Rhino call for October 18th, and that means we're a little more than halfway through October. There's some cool stuff going on. We're doing our fall groups right now, both the Biggest Loser and the Power of the Pack groups, both which are going very well, I would say. There is a group coming up that Brooke Brown started called the Fight the Holidays, something like that. But it's about core de force, and it looks like a really fun group that we can get in and kind of get some people into the core de force thing. We're also doing, what else? Team Spirit. So if you haven't signed up for Team Spirit, get everybody in there. Look for Brooke's posts. Brooke, not Brooks. Brooke. Not Brooks Lucas, Brooke Brown. Look for her posts in the Team Rhino group. I also posted a reminder about the special promotion for qualifying for the Rhinola retreat, which is like a pre-summit Rhino get-together thing that is happening like the couple days before Summit that you can qualify for and get $500 in travel cash to come to Summit, as well as get to tour New Orleans with us. So reminder on that, there is a way to qualify with tracking your activity. So I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly all the details, but there's like 5 or 6 different ways to qualify. So take a look at that. I posted it in Team Rhino. What else is going on? Am I missing something? I don't think so. So what we're going to talk about today is like a precursor or the step before what we talked about last week. And I did it that way kind of on purpose because I asked before last week, you know, what would you guys like to hear? And one of the things was about questions. And I said, okay, I've got something on that I think is super helpful for people. And so I did last week, I did, you know, how to ask questions. And it was like a building trust and getting towards the solution, presenting the solution. It was like in between where you get someone who says, ooh, I'm interested kind of in what you do. And when you say, here's your link to order, what do you do in that space? Because a lot of people skip that part and they just go straight from, oh, someone's interested, here's the link. No, okay, we had that whole like, how do you talk to those people, ask good questions, find out what they're really interested in, how committed are they, what's the right fit for them, blah, blah, blah. So we talked about that whole process. Now, what we're going to talk about today is before that is how do you get people from just people to interested, right? Not to the point of where you're going to send the link, but how do you get them to the interested point where you have the permission to go ahead and say, let's talk about what your goals are. Let's talk about what the right program is for you. Let's talk about what flavor of Shakeology do you want. Let's talk about if Shakeology is even right for you. Let's talk about, you know, all those things and ask all those questions that we did last time, okay? Because you can't just walk up to somebody who isn't even curious or interested in what you have and say, you know, what are your goals for weight loss, right? Like they've got to be curious first. They've got to be interested. They've got to be someone who's asking you questions. And so a lot of people ask, well, that's great. If I had people asking me about this, then I could do the questioning part, but nobody's asking me. Nobody's interested. Nobody's wanting to know more about my challenge groups. I post about my challenge groups and I get nothing. Or, you know, I just don't have enough people to talk to, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to talk about creating curiosity and getting the permission to talk to those people. So I'm going to share my screen. See if I can do that. I think I've got it now. Everybody see it? Somebody let me know that you can see it. Okay. So this was actually a training that I did that I'll link you guys to. But this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about permission as one of the things, and why you need permission in order to do what we talked about last team call. Now, I want to make sure, did I actually already hit Record. Okay, I did hit record. Excellent. I want to make sure I was recording. Okay, so we're going to talk about why you need permission to get to the step where we were last time, where we start asking those questions. We're going to talk about the concept of pinging, and we're going to use dating as an example. Some of you who have been around a little while with us on the team have maybe heard this analogy before, but it's a great way to think about how to create curiosity and how to lessen your risk of rejection, basically. And I'll explain what I mean by that. We're going to talk a little bit about strategies for creating curiosity. There's just so many of them, you couldn't possibly actually make a oh, here's exactly how to do it, but there's some general overall guidelines. And then we're going to talk about recognizing the signs of permission and transitioning to the next step. We might not get through all that. I just want to talk about mostly the first part of it because I think it's really, really important. Okay, so when we're creating curiosity and we're trying to move to that next step where we're going to ask them the questions about their goals and we're going to try to fit them with the right program and we're going to send them the link and we're going to get them signed up, we talk about that you need permission to move into that step. And why do you need that permission? Why can't you just bombard people with a bunch of sales ads? Why can't you just bombard people with, this is a great thing to do. You should work with me. You should lose weight. You should do core to force. You should do, why can't you just bombard people? The reason is because there's too many choices right now. There's too much information. There's too many sources. There's too many salesmen. There's too many opportunities. And so you can no longer bombard people with your message like they used to be able to. The way it used to work, right? Think about before the internet. Just think about just before the internet, but there was still TV, right? And we could go back even further and it was even harder, but just think about there's only TV and there's no cable. There's 4 network channels or 3 network channels, okay? The way to get your message out to people was you bought television time and you bombarded them. So the person on the other end wasn't saying, I would really love to have a commercial about a carbonated beverage right now. I hope that comes up, right? They didn't get a choice about that. It just, Coke put a commercial out and they blasted it to however many million people were watching that television channel, and you had to actually get up to change the television channel, right? It's a whole different game right now because when you're on Facebook, you have ads popping up from some Yahoo like me who's running a Facebook ad, and you've got down the side, you've got ads. And if you're on your favorite blog, they've sold ad space on the sides, and everything there's so much more ad space out there, right? So people are getting Yahoo and Google and Facebook and all this stuff, right? So you can't just be another voice or another noise in the midst of that. You have to actually get the permission to talk about what you want to talk about, okay? So the other thing about that is it reduces your risk of rejection if you get the permission, and it increases your potential for success, okay? So the last thing that we want to do as a coach is consistently hear the word no, in the sense of just bombarding people with a sales message and hearing no from 75 to 90% of our audience, right? It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to get no, 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 right? So this method actually reduces the risk of getting those no's and increases the potential for success, because you can move on to the people who actually aren't interested, who don't give you the permission to give your sales message, right? The people who it's not worth giving the sales message to. It's the same as if Coca-Cola could have known in 1975 how many of the million viewers that they saw out there that would actually respond to their ad, and they only showed it on television to those people, right? That's kind of what we're doing here, is we're saying, who's open to this message? Do I have permission to tell you this message? Okay, let's talk about it, okay? So one of the strategies that I use, I call pinging, which if you're familiar with the term pinging and you're, for me, actually, Tamara's in the Navy. She probably is down with this, but sonar, right, is where we get the idea of pinging. It creates like a pulse of sound, right? Sound waves go out, and then it echoes off of the off of all the objects that are out there, and then it comes back. And the sonar is able to tell, okay, well, it echoed this way, so it echoed this in this manner, so that object is this far away, right? So it puts something out, it gets feedback back, and then it analyzes that feedback and decides what to do next, okay? That's like how a submarine, and I don't know what you're working tomorrow, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how a submarine navigates around, right? Is it puts out all these sonar pulses and it says, okay, I'm not going to run into anything. Or, oh, I need to change course because I'm going here or there, right? I'm sure they use maps and all that kind of stuff too, right? But there's sonar that tells them that there's no gigantic wall in front of me that I'm going to run into, right? Because we've pinged out and what the map says matches what the sonar says, right? So it's a navigating tool, right? So we can use the same kind of idea when we're navigating conversations and people when we're talking to them, right? So if you just imagine it like this, if you put out a ping with someone and you're like, you know, you're having a conversation with your barber on Saturday when you're sitting at the at getting your hair cut, or your stylist, and they say, you know, they say, what are you doing this weekend? And you're like, oh, well, you know, I'm gonna do my workout. I'm doing a P90X3 workout. And they don't give you any kind of positive feedback towards that. If they're like, oh, anything else? That's kind of like, that might be a signal that you don't want to continue down the road of talking about your P90X3 workout. If they're like, oh, really, P90X3? I didn't realize that there was even a third P90X. I like, are you saying that there's a P90X2 and there's, I mean, I used to do P90X back. Okay, this is feedback, right? That tells us this is a conversation where they're giving us permission to continue to talk about it, right? They're saying, really, P90, they're asking us a question about it, right? So think about it like that you can put out pings, listen to the feedback, and adjust what you say next accordingly. What I see too many people do is they're like, when I'm at the stylist this week, I am totally going to sign that girl up for coaching because she would be awesome at this. And so you throw something out there like, I'm doing P90X3, and she's like, oh, really? Huh? What else are you doing this weekend? She's like, and you just go like, oh, well, you know what? You would be the most amazing coach. And it's like, okay, no, that you did not get feedback from that person that says, keep talking about that. In other words, you did not get permission from them to continue that line of conversation, okay? So put out those pings that say, this is what I'm doing. This is part of my life. It's not hard to put out these pings because you're constantly doing something that relates to this, right? If you're doing the workout program, every single day you're doing something that relates to this. If you're working your business, every single day you're doing something that relates to this. When you have conversations with people, this is a part of your life, right? So putting out pings, bringing it up in conversation is not difficult. And getting the feedback from people and hearing whether they want to hear more of that or not is usually not that difficult either. Sometimes, you know, it's hard to tell. But most of the time, people let you know very clearly whether they want to continue that line of conversation that you may have brought up or whether they don't, right? And that's the risk reduction part, is that if people clearly don't want to continue that line of questioning, that line of conversation, then you don't have to continue down it. And so you don't have to go for a yes or a no question that gets you a yes or a no answer that results in possible rejection. Why ask someone a yes or no question like, will you join my challenge group, when they weren't interested in the line of conversation that you were bringing up to begin with that had to do with your challenge group, right? I don't have the chat up, but somebody is, nobody wants to be trapped in a corner. That's exactly right. That's what Sandy's saying, is nobody wants to be trapped in a corner. I totally agree with that. So why do that to people, right? You can bring up that conversation because it's part of your life, and you can listen for the feedback and adjust your conversation accordingly. You don't have to force it into places, okay? The dating illustration that I use is like you're at a party. Imagine that you're at a party. It's somewhat like, think of prospects as if, this is, you know, like, obviously you don't date 200 people at a time, right? So it doesn't work perfectly. But imagine that every person that you're prospecting is someone that you're thinking about as a possible date, right? Okay, you wouldn't go to a party with 30 people that are possible dates for you. You're single, you go to a party and there's 30 people that you could possibly date there. You wouldn't go around the room and be like, do you want to date me? Do you want to date me? Do you want to date me? And hope that out of 30 people, you would have a good average, you know, like, well, at least one of these 30 is gonna want to date me, right? Like, you wouldn't do it that way. You would go and you would meet people. You would have conversation with people. If you liked those people and you thought, yeah, I really would maybe like to, you know, go out on a one-on-one date with that person, you would have a conversation with that person. And so one of the things that you could do in this scenario that I'm talking about with pinging is you might have a great conversation with someone who you're thinking about. Maybe I'd want to go on a date with this person one-on-one, and you could ask them what kind of things they like to do, right? And if they say, well, you know, I just like to do, you know, lots of different stuff, and they don't give you any kind of like real feedback, like, well, I love to go see movies, right? Something like that, that might be an indication that, you know, they're not as interested as you are. If they're like, well, I love to go see movies, and I heard that the new Bond movie is out and it's playing Friday night, that's an indication that maybe you should go for the yes or no, right? So think about it like that with the conversations that you're having. I think there was another, I want to check the chat here. Heidi, I'm assuming the speak for yourself was that you wouldn't want to date 50 people at the same time or 30 people at the same time. Oh man, the things I deal with this group of people, I tell you. But that's the dating illustration, is think about each of one of your conversations that you're gonna look for the return feedback from the person that they're actually interested, right? Like if you're talking to someone at a party and you can tell that they're not interested in you, are you gonna then ask them out on a date anyway? You know, like you can tell this person's not into me. Every question I ask, they don't give me very good feedback. They're kind of dismissing it. They don't really want to talk to me. They keep looking away. You know, like if that's happening in your conversation where you're bringing up Beachbody, then don't force that in there. Like the people who give you the good feedback where you say something about, I'm starting this challenge group, people are like, really, what's that about? How does that work? You know, and they're giving you that feedback, go after that, okay? So let's see. So there's lots of ways to create that curiosity that can bring that person, you know, that can bring that person to you where they're like, tell me more about this. And then you can go on to the question asking. Some of those ways, posting on social media. This can be good and this can be bad. You're going to see, as a coach on this team, you're going to see some other coaches. You're going to become friends with other coaches. Brooke Brown, Brooks Lucas, Heidi Boards, different types of coaches, right? And you're going to see some coaches who will post something and they'll get 35 likes, 50 likes, 75 likes, 12 comments. I want to join your group. You're going to post the exact same thing. 4 likes, no comments. Nobody wants to join your group, okay? In some cases, that can be explained. In some cases, no idea. Honestly, like I can post something and get nothing. Heidi can post something and get tons of comments. Then almost the exact same thing. You just don't know. You cannot rely completely on my way of inviting is post a thing out there on social media. I'm starting this group and hope that people respond. Okay. It could have to do with the time of day that you post. It could have to do with the type of friends that you have, how long you've been a coach. It could be any number of things. Okay. That doesn't mean that that's not a good way to create curiosity and get people asking you questions. I'm just saying, don't rely on it. Okay. The other things is lifestyle changes and or lifestyle consistency. If people see transformation in you, they will become curious. And those transformations can be physical. They can be the way that you seem to talk. They can be the amount of money that you seem to have, the lifestyle that you live. There's lots of different things that can change about you, that can transform about you, or that can just stay consistent about you when other people aren't staying consistent, that can create curiosity with people. So you have to think about that stuff when you're posting on social media and when you're talking to other people is that if you want people to be curious about what you're doing, you have to show them that the things that will make them curious, right? So I guess what I'm saying is if you're losing weight with your workout program, you've got to show that or no one's going to be curious, right? Like you have to show them that you're losing weight with your workout program. If you're maybe not losing weight or anything like that, but you've hit your workouts 2 weeks in a row, 3 weeks in a row, 5 weeks in a row, 10 weeks in a row, you've completed your programs, you don't have to post about it every single day, and you don't have to be, annoying about it or something, but people have to be able to see that you're being consistent and that you're making changes, right? That's going to create curiosity with people. Your personal story, it could be a video, a post, a conversation, talking about your personal story can create curiosity with people. Comments made in general conversation, much like what I was talking about with sitting at your hairstylist and they ask you what you're doing this weekend. That is going to create curiosity with people, right? If you talk about something that you're doing that is related to the business, it could create curiosity with people. So don't be afraid to do that. I always tell people there's something going on this weekend that has to do with this business, either a workout, your nutrition planning, or something you're doing with the business, or else you're not really working the business, right? I mean, most likely there's something related to it. It doesn't have to be like, well, I'm working the whole weekend because I'm trying to build my business, but there's something related to it. And people often ask you, what are you doing this weekend? Or people often ask you, what are you doing tonight? Or people ask you about your life, right? If you ask them about their life, guess what happens? They most likely are going to ask you about your life. And what's part of your life? Workouts, Shakeology, nutrition, business, these things, right? So it's not hard to bring it up in conversation and then listen for the feedback. Listen for what they say to your comment that has to do with this business and has to do with what you're doing. Other people's stories and results can be, what was that, Heidi?
There's a chat I don't think you saw.
Oh, is there?
I think so.
Oh, Sandy says, I agree with Heidi. I struggle with mutual Facebook friends and posts that are exact same from coach to coach. So what do you mean by you struggle with it? You mean like you see a lot of ones that are the same and some people get response and some people don't? Or I'm not sure how to address it.
I don't know if you'll get feedback or not. Am I coming through okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I struggle with it because of all the mutual friends that I have with lots of different coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And I see from coach to coach the same exact post for the same group,
right?
The same challenge group. And if I try to post that, which is the duplication effect,
mm-hmm.
obviously I'm not going to get anything, any likes or comments or anything because of all the mutual friends, because everybody's going to see the same thing and they'll kind of go, oh, well, we know what's going on here.
Yeah. I could see the point there, that there's a lot of people that are going to see the same post if you have mutual friends with people, but usually there's a bunch of people that that they don't know. Like you don't know all of Heidi's friends or all of Luke's friends or whatever, right? Like it may seem big, but I think most likely it's not as big, right? It's a core group of people maybe that are, because like I'm friends with, I think Lisa Madsen and I have like 480 mutual friends or some ridiculous thing like that. And Heidi and I have like 280 or 300 mutual friends or something, because we're all friends with a lot of the same people through Beachbody customers and 90/10 people and all that kind of stuff. But I also have 2,000 people who I'm not mutual friends with them. So all those people see it, right? And so I don't really rely on that, cross group of people or worry about that cross group of people. I worry about the people that are my customers or that are my potential customers that aren't, like a cross group. So I don't know if that helps at all, but I kind of try to go after my own group of people. So
the other side of that, sorry, Ryan, the other side of that is if they see it one time from me and one time from Becca and one time from Sarah and one time from you, they're like, oh my gosh, this is a bandwagon. Like, I got to get on this thing. This is, everybody that I know is doing this. I've got to do this too.
Yeah, that can have a good effect actually in a lot of cases.
Right. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, in my opinion.
Yep.
Okay. Well, here's part of my struggle with it. My ethical brain kicks in and says, don't plagiarize.
Okay, so you're talking copy and pasted posts?
Right.
Well, okay, and I see that point. Sometimes people copy and paste. Well, some people do copy and paste posts, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody who is upset about the person copying and pasting their posts. People take my posts sometimes, but I'm not upset about it. So I don't know. I have seen that happen though. I have seen what you're talking about. So personal invitations are another thing.
I'm not saying I'm complaining about someone else copying me. I'm saying that's me saying I should not be plagiarizing. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Right. So and if you don't want to copy and paste other people's posts, then you can write your own version of it, right? Like the same kind of, if you're trying to do the same group but not make the exact same post, you can talk about that group in the way that you want to talk about the group and not exact copy of what the other person says about the group, which is
right.
what I usually
do.
do.
That's what I've been trying to do.
Right.
But I get nothing from it. So I'm not getting any likes or comments or anything from it. I just get dead space, crickets.
And I'm not sure what the reason for that is. Like I said, with posting on social media, is that I just don't think you can rely on just posting on social media, because I don't know the reasons why sometimes I get likes and sometimes I don't, and why you might get likes or not get likes, or why Heidi might get likes or not get likes. So I don't really know what the answer to that is. So the last thing on here is personal invitations. You can actually kind of go a little bit more straight at it. Have you ever considered joining one of my challenge groups? That's a little bit more high risk. It's not so much of a ping, right? But it's going right after it and saying, hey, have you ever considered joining one of my challenge groups? Hey, have you ever considered joining me in this business? That's more like not really creating curiosity. It's more like straight at it. But you can go that way. So the only reason I put that in here is because I don't want you to think that you cannot directly invite someone to the business, that you have to do a ping and see how they are. And, like, you don't have to. This is just a way that you can have conversations with people without everything just being always a direct invitation to join you, right? You can see if people are interested in what you're doing. Okay. Let's see if I can get this to move on here. So, I think I'm actually going to, I'll go through a little bit of this. So there's different ways, like in your posting or in your personal conversations, that you can start some of these conversations and posts that actually create the curiosity. So there's different strategies here. One of them is very simple, straight to the point. Can I ask you a question? Yes, you can ask me a question. Okay, have you ever thought about joining the challenge group that I've got coming up? So that's kind of the straight at thing. The other one that I've talked about before in other trainings is the made me think of you strategy, which is when you're inviting to challenge groups, you can actually go and tell someone that you thought of them for a particular thing because of certain things about that person. Okay, so that's one way that might actually spark some curiosity in someone, is especially when you're like inviting to the business. If you can tell someone one of the reasons why you think they would be good at it, the things about them that made you think of them, that can spark curiosity in people, and they can be like, oh, well, tell me more about the business, right? Tell me more about that, because you just said, I thought of you because you are this, this, and this, right? Associative references can create curiosity when you're talking about someone else who joins your challenge group who they know, or someone else who joins your team who they know. That can create curiosity. When you do partial info, you can create curiosity. So maybe you talk about your challenge group, but you don't list every single detail about the challenge group. You only list part of the information to get people to ask you more. That can create the curiosity where you can get to the question asking part. Right along with that is glimpses of value. So glimpses of value is sort of the same as partial info in that you're giving them a little bit of a peek into what they'll get when they join you. And that creates the curiosity for them to go after it. So I think transformations from the last group would be a glimpse of value, right? You don't necessarily list everything about the challenge group and what you have to do. You show a transformation picture and you're like, I'm starting another group like this. Here was the winner of our last group. That's a glimpse of value. They're like, well, that's valuable. I'd love to lose weight like that. What do I have to do to get in this group? There's the curiosity, there's the permission, right? When they say, I'd love to get in this group, or tell me what I have to do to get in the group, they've given you the permission to talk about the group and go into that, right? Momentum, this is kind of the one that, this is kind of goes along with what Heidi was talking about with, you know, if everybody that they know is posting about this group, that they're doing this group, that they want to get people into the group, there's a sense of momentum. There's that herd effect where it's like, there's so many people doing this. It must be amazing. I need more information. How do I get in? Right? Newness and or exclusivity is another way to create curiosity. Core to force fits into this category. It's a new program. You know, you can only get it right now from coaches, blah, blah, blah. Well, not yet, but you know, that's the kind of thing that you would do. Newness and or exclusivity is another curiosity strategy. I think I'm going to kind of, there's some other things that we could talk about here, but I think I'm going to end with that. Just some curiosity strategies and ask you guys what you think about those strategies and what things come to mind for those. So it's on you guys now. Heidi, anything? Tamara? Sandy?
I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to think of an example that I've used recently, and I can't think of one.
I mean, a lot of us did the glimpses of value thing or partial info thing, maybe even associative references thing when we post a transformation from the last Power of the Pack group, right?
Right. Shauna picture went a long way.
Yeah, you post a picture of Shauna. Some people might even know Shauna, right? Like maybe it's possible. That could be an associative reference. There's partial info about the group there. There's a glimpse of value because they see the transformation. You might have talked about the $1,000. That's another glimpse of value, right?
Yeah, I got total crickets on that. Not even a like or a penny on that.
Can you hear me?
Becca, oh yeah, I can. I didn't know you were on here. I'm only seeing like 3 people at a time. So okay. Hey.
Hey. I've been kind of out of the loop for the month of October. We've got a lot going on, but what really worked for me for September was right after Summit, and I had been posting, I won't say nonstop, but I increased all of my posts on social media, period. I joined Instagram. I did Facebook at least 3 times a day, and just really tried to put myself out there more. So for me, if I'm going to do a challenge group or whatever, I feel like I have to be part of that group. So it's hard for me to do like the Power of the Pack. Currently, I am doing a program, so I do post in there or whatnot, but if I'm not currently going to do the program, I wouldn't advertise for it. So if I'm going to do a challenge group come December, I would say, hey, this new MMA, whatever program the Core to Force is, and say it's coming out, let's do a challenge group, let's do it for December, we can get around the holidays, we can do all this stuff, and I just try to really, the only term that comes to mind is browbeat, but I don't want to say browbeat, but Luke had mentioned at one time that he posts like once a week like the first 2 weeks of the month. And then the third week, he does like 2 or 3 times a week about what you're going to do. And then that last week of the month, really hitting it hard about, yeah, this is coming up. You want to be part of this. You know, you want to do this thing. So I really took that to heart for August. And I got a lot of business for September. I think there were like 5 people I had in a challenge group just by myself.
Mhm.
So that, I mean, I don't know if that's strategy or anything, but it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of focus to post all of the time.
I think that fits in with the consistency thing, right? Like if people are seeing that you're not just going to post like one time about it, and then you're not even really going to do the group yourself, and you're not going to make any changes, you're just hoping to get business, they can kind of tell that. But if they see you being more consistent with it, where you're actually doing these things and they see it every month, that's the thing. So you did it in August. Did you do it in September? That's the question.
I did not, and it shows. I have nothing going on. I haven't talked to anybody. I haven't followed up with anything. I've done really, really bad for my business the last 2 months. So, it shows. I mean, I don't have anybody doing anything.
Well, it'd be interesting to see, like, if you had done the same thing in September, and then you do the same thing in October, and then you do the same thing in November, what that does, because that consistency over time does build up, right? It does build up.
Right.
Now, the other part of that, though, is that if it's the same people that are seeing that month after month after month, you have to be adding new people. You have to be networking with new people, because, you know, if you've got a ton of people, that can last for 3 months, or it could last 6 months, or it could last 8 months, where you're like, if I just keep this consistent posting on 5 people a month, and I'm good to go. But if you're not adding new people to talk to, then it goes away, right? Like eventually all your people have seen it and they're like, yeah, I wasn't interested in August. I wasn't interested in September. I wasn't interested in October, and I'm still not interested, right? So you got to keep adding new people that will be interested. And I think a lot of coaches do end up failing there, is that they just keep posting the same thing to the same group, right? So there's that piece as well.
That also, I think, plays a part when people keep telling you no, and you're like, why do I keep posting all of this all of the time? Mm-hmm. But for the month of August, that didn't bother me at all. I didn't care who said no. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and I think you're right about the whole consistency thing. I think that's a big, major problem for me.
They have to know that you're going to stick with it for the long term. Before some people just will not join until they know that you're serious, right? So if they see you go in and out, then they're like, I'm not so sure. If they see you consistent, then they're like, okay, now I can be in it, you know? So the whole point of this whole thing, though, is really to think about how you can bring up those conversations, and then how you can evaluate the feedback from those people, so that you can know whether you can move into the next part of the conversation or not, right? Because I think a lot of people think of inviting, like, what I have to do is go around and cold invite people all the time. And you can do that. You can certainly do that. And I've done that, and I do that sometimes, you know, just like, hey, I want to invite you. I'm going to invite you right now, right? But the most of what happens is I create a little curiosity with people. From a post, from something I say in conversation, from an associative reference, like somebody tells them about me, they come to me, you know, some type of curiosity happens, or through a freemium thing that I'm doing, like putting out a free training plan. Then they come and ask me some questions about the training plan. We have a conversation. I ask them some questions about nutrition. Shakeology comes up. They seem interested. I continue the conversation. I go into questions, end up with a sale, right? It's a process that happens over the course of listening to the person and to how they're feeling right now. Are they feeling, am I feeling like they're interested in what I just brought up? Or are they like, yeah, don't talk to me about that, you know? And I go from there, and I move towards a sale if it seems to move that way. I don't force it that way. I guide it that way. I don't force it that way, if that makes sense. So, other questions for tonight? Thoughts? No? Hello? Hello? Nobody? All right. Okay, so the only other thing I'll say is that this training, like creating curiosity, asking the questions, and then it goes on moving into how to actually transition into commitment and sale and enrolling, is actually a video training that I've had made for 2.5 or 3 years. And so I'll post the links to that along with tonight's team call so that you all can see it. It just hasn't, it's actually been a part of our training for quite a while, but it's not on the website right now. So I'll link you guys up to that. You can go through it at your leisure, and hopefully it helps. So good night, everybody.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.